brain's dream weaving and neuro detox.
Hello everyone and welcome back to today's deep dive. Today, we are dissecting a profound psychological mechanism that we experience every single day, yet rarely see with complete clarity: the brain's weaving function. In daily life, whenever the concept of spiritual practice or the dreamlike nature of reality is brought up, most people's minds instantly lock up. They feel that dreams are too elusive and fail to find any practical connection. In conventional human understanding, daytime mind wandering, daydreaming, and nighttime dreaming are viewed as three entirely unrelated things. But today, I am going to give you a definitive, revolutionary truth right from the start: nighttime dreams, daydreams, and delusional thoughts are completely identical in their underlying logic. These three are, without a doubt, the exact same mechanism. What does it actually mean to have a delusional thought? It means you are sitting there weaving a script completely out of thin air, extracting your memories, raw emotions, and stored psychological data, and compiling them according to your own ego's intent. Sometimes you weave scenarios of deep infatuation, sometimes scenarios of fear and suspicion, anger, arrogance, doubt, and sometimes you sit there for an entire day, completely losing track of time. This exact weaving tendency and mechanism is completely identical, whether it occurs during the day or in the dead of night. Today, we will strip away the illusions of delusional thinking through the twin lenses of modern neuroscience and quantum externalization, and explore exactly why your inner wisdom fails to stabilize. Part E: the film A Beautiful Mind and the Materialization of Delusion. Many of you have watched the classic film A Beautiful Mind, which depicts a brilliant mathematician suffering from split personalities. He genuinely sees a little girl and several other characters speaking to him daily, and eventually, by relying on an intense focus, he coexists with these hallucinations and goes on to win a Nobel Prize. Some people hold a massive misconception here, thinking, look at that, he focused his mind so intensely that he single-handedly manifested a separate karmic reality, creating characters out of thin air and physical reality. Isn't that a miracle of pure mental power? This is completely misleading. Resulting from the visual format of cinema, the movie depicts those three characters simply because it cannot physically slice open his brain and display his intricate thought patterns on screen. It is forced to materialize his delusions and psychological afflictions. That little girl who constantly seeks attention and whom he continuously pampers is, in his real inner world, nothing more than a specific trait or attachment trend embedded deep within his subconscious mind. The other characters prompting him to seek food, drink, and entertainment merely represent the concepts of greed emerging from his brain. This is not a case of him magically manufacturing physical human beings. It is the afflictions and attachments of his inner world screaming at him. This explicitly proves a fundamental reality, whether you believe you are in control or not. You are continuously extracting data from your hippocampus, pairing it with emotion, and randomly manufacturing a dream state. During the day, your six sensory faculties extract external material data from the environment, filter it through your internal memory systems of good or bad, and weave the liked or disliked reality of your immediate present. This is called daydreaming. At night, your six sensory faculties shut down, and your brain draws purely from its internal storage bank to continue weaving. This is called nighttime dreaming. Fundamentally, the moment you encounter raw data, you add emotion and begin to weave. And the sole purpose of compiling this psychological script is for self-preservation, ego defense, and to fiercely protect your points of greed and attachment. The moment reality clashes with your desire for fame or profit, you instantly begin weaving scenarios of bitter retaliation or internalized resentment. Some individuals harbor this irritation for months or even years, choosing to endure intense suffering rather than letting go. Because you have trained this habit so deeply, it has run into complete automaticity and you are entirely powerless to stop it. Part R: refined carbohydrate corrosion. Why you learn the truth daily, yet forget it instantly. Since the absolute first step to entering a state of genuine practice is to clearly identify every single delusional thought, distinguishing whether your current impulse is anchored in right view, in right thought, or false views and afflictions, we must confront a devastatingly cold biological reality: why are modern people experiencing worse memory retention and weaker analytical skills, forgetting profound insights the exact moment after learning them? This is not because you are inherently dull, it is almost entirely dictated by what you eat. From infancy through adulthood, humans absorb countless concepts from parents, schools, and society. Once experienced and normalized into absolute habits, these concepts become the hard-coded blueprints upon which your neural networks grow and develop. Every single time you internalize a piece of right view, the corresponding neural architecture extends forward and thickens laterally. However, modern society is completely obsessed with high-calorie, deep-fried foods. Alongside the big three: refined carbohydrates, white rice, white flour, and processed sugar. These three refined carbohydrates directly destroy your blood-brain barrier, acting like a highly acidic corrosive liquid that floods and dissolves your hippocampus. The human brain fears nothing more than excessive salt, trans fats, and glucose. The brain manufactures new neural tissue every single day. When you study a piece of right view today, understanding it with extreme precision and committing it to memory, your brain's surface is carefully layering a brand new sheet of fragile neural fibers. Yet, the moment you flood your system with a high-sugar, high-fat meal of refined carbohydrates, that corrosive wave flushes through your brain. This newly sprouted neural network cannot survive for more than a few minutes. It is instantly dissolved and completely wiped away. You grow a layer, and your diet erases a layer. You grow another, and it gets erased again. Consequently, newly acquired insights simply cannot stabilize, rendering you incapable of memory retention, let alone profound analysis and real-world application. Meanwhile, your deeply entrenched false views and toxic attachments have been fed so heavily over the past several decades that they are exceptionally thick. The metabolic corrosion cannot easily reach their core, leaving your afflictions and negative habits rock solid and utterly unshakable. This is exactly why within the supreme wisdom of spiritual cultivation, practitioners are strictly required to maintain the 8 vows of purification, and monastics must restrict themselves to 1 meal a day before noon, completely abstaining from any caloric intake outside that window. This is absolutely not a restrictive dogma. It is the most cutting-edge clinical medicine in existence. It acts as a sovereign shield for your blood-brain barrier, preventing refined carbohydrates from systematically corroding the very neural structures you need to secure your ultimate liberation. Part 10. Musk's Neuralink vs. Spiritual non-invasive healing. When confronting those negative habits and false views within the brain that have already grown as thick as ancient trees and moss, able to chop down in a single second, modern science and future spiritual practice are headed toward a fascinating intersection. As many of you know, tech giant Elon Musk is aggressively advancing surgical procedures for the Neuralink brain-computer interface. In the science of tomorrow, if a specific neural network controlling your language or motor skills degenerates, or if a negative behavioral pathway becomes too thick, medical technology can physically intervene through surgery, excising it, removing it, or bypassing it entirely with an artificial conduit to restore sight to the blind and hearing to the deaf. However, the brain-computer interface advanced by Musk is an invasive procedure. It relies on aggressive physical modification. In stark contrast, genuine spiritual practice stands as the world's sole absolute form of non-invasive healing. We rely entirely on the sovereign power of our internal right view and systemic cognitive restructuring to forcefully starve, wither, and collapse those material neural pathways formed by false views and rigid habits. Based on precise calculations, this non-invasive healing protocol operates at a speed that easily rivals advanced technology. For Musk to execute a surgical opening of the skull, wait for the bone tissue to fuse, and calibrate the digital code, it requires a minimum timeline of 1 month. Yet, if an individual approaches spiritual cultivation with absolute, rigorous professionalism, deploying a supreme level of cognitive willpower, mere 21 days is biologically sufficient to fully restructure an entirely new cortical architecture. Why, then, do so many of us study for 20 years only to leave our brains in the exact same state of stagnation, waiting around for future surgery? Because you have failed to clear the absolute baseline of true practice, you have not cultivated an absolute, visceral terror toward the nature of suffering. Conclusion: what world will you choose to project? What exactly is spiritual cultivation? It is the act of modification, correction, and restoration of your mental actions, physical actions, and verbal actions. An individual who loudly claims they want to escape suffering, yet refuses to discipline their sensory indulgence and refined carbohydrates, negotiating instead for "can I just take one less bite?" holds absolutely no qualification to call themselves a true practitioner. Cultivation demands the absolute professional rigor of an elite student, memorizing character by character, writing essay after essay, and deploying a flawless standard of analysis to precisely measure the systemic damage caused by toxic attachments. The exact millisecond you cultivate a precise comprehension of cause and effect and develop a visceral terror toward the suffering generated by your negative habits, your brain unleashes a supreme wave of cognitive power, shattering and severing the old neural networks of delusion in a single, definitive flash. This embodies the very core of the four right exertions within the traditional 37 factors of awakening. To eradicate unwholesome states that have already risen. To prevent unwholesome states that have not yet risen from arising. To generate wholesome states that have not yet risen. To fortify and sustain wholesome states that have already risen. To close today's session, let us examine the ultimate meaning behind the name Shakya Muni. Shakya represents his ancestral clan name, while Muni, within the ancient records, translates explicitly to the wish-fulfilling jewel, signifying perfect contentment, absolute resolution, and sovereign mastery over reality. The moment you completely detoxify your brain from metabolic poisons and deploy right jewel alongside the four right exertions to cleanly slice through the weaving of delusion, you cease to be a passive worldly captive drifting through daydreams and nighttime illusions while enduring self-inflicted agony. Your consciousness transforms into a genuine, unshakable Muni jewel, resting in the light of eternal stillness with supreme autonomy. Thank you for tuning into this deep analytical insight shared by the Buddha Activity Association of Australia. May all beings establish right view, break the momentum of negativity, restructure their neural architecture through the path of non-invasive healing, and escape the gravity of all suffering to realize absolute, ultimate liberation. We will see you next time. Bye bye.